Hey everyone, Jason from OddAudio here, and today we're going to do a bit of a deep dive because what I have in front of me here is a Nakamichi Dragon transport, and I'm doing a full service on this guy, so I'm doing all the rubber bits and lubrication and adjustment, etc. But I wanted to share this because one, because it's cool, and two, because I want to kind of dispel a little bit of the mythos around the Dragon because they're not that exotic at the end of the day. So what you have is essentially a classic transport, or what some people call the classic transport. It's the Nakamichi transport that was introduced in the 70s and was used all the way up into the 90s. And this is kind of the transport to have if you're really into Nakamichi decks versus the cheaper and arguably simpler Sankyo transports. So if you've ever been inside of any 2 or 3 head Nakamichi, this is all already looking really familiar. Like this whole chassis and all of this white plastic stuff, this is all identical to pretty much any Nak made from late 70s onward. Now the difference with a Dragon is, one, you have a 4-track head because it plays in both directions. So it's an auto reverse, but the head doesn't move. The head actually stays in position, but it's got an extra set of tracks on the other side to play the other side when it's reversed and going in the other direction. It's actually what you find in tape decks in car audio. That's how they did the auto reverse. The head was fixed, but it just had an extra set of tracks on the other side so that the tape would just spool the other way and play backwards. So same idea going on in here. The party trick of a Dragon is this. This is the auto azimuth system, and you can see there's this cable, which is actually just a flat ribbon cable, which goes down and is actually, you can just barely see there's kind of a brass plate sandwiched in there, and you can see how the headsets are sort of tilted in odd angles. That's how it's aligned with the screws on the front. And this cable just shifts the heads slightly back and forth to adjust the azimuth. Azimuth is, when you think of your head alignment, azimuth is like this. So it's actually kind of pivoting. Tilt is like that. So back and forth, and then height obviously is up and down. So when you talk about azimuth, you're actually referring to a pivot like that. And all it is, it's actually really simple. You got a little motor, belt, it's driving a worm gear, which moves a slider back and forth, and that actually moves this cable back and forth. And you can see on the back here, this is the alignment gauge. That just shows that it's in the middle position right now. But you'll see this will actually move back and forth as the mechanism travels back and forth. And that's it. Like, this is actually super simple. Like, this is really simple mechanical stuff, and there's nothing scary about this. The scary part is the electronics that control this and actually drive this and set to find the azimuth position. So mechanically, no problem, easy to fix. Actually, the rest of it is just pretty much standard Nakamichi fare with this bolted onto it. So nothing scary here. But like I say, the scary part is when the electronics are a problem, because they're quite complicated and there's certain proprietary parts there that you can't get anymore. So beyond that, this is a direct drive capstan system. So you've got kind of these little sensor plates here which plug into the motor board. This is the motor control board, so the two are controlled independently. And these are the actual drivers here, so you can see they look very much like a direct drive turntable system, but just miniaturized, and 2 of them. And then these are the actual capstans here with the magnets on the back that interface with those guys. And that's not unique to the Dragon. They also use that in ZX9, some other models. And beyond that, if you go to the front now, so like we were talking about, you've got your 4-track head. Sorry if I get the focus. So that's your playback head, that's your record head, and then your erase head. So 1, 2, 3, 3 heads. And they're all independently adjustable. So that's what all these screws are for, and please do not touch those if you don't know what you're doing, because it's very easy to completely screw up the alignment. One click on these will completely mess it up. And aside from that, this is all standard Nakamichi stuff. You have your idler tire inside here, which drives the take-up wheels, or take-up reels. There's also, it's missing right now, but there is a belt that goes between this counter and here, but there's also another counter attached back here with an optical sensor. That's for this one, and that the only reason that's there is because this plays in the backwards direction, whereas on other NAC decks you only have this one because it only plays in one direction. So they add a second one in here for the Dragon. And other than that, this is all just standard Nakamichi classic transport. So yes, they're very finicky. They need to have careful alignment. Everything needs to be in really good shape and properly set up. Idler like any Nakamichi, idler tire is important. Those slip and get hard when they age out. Pinch rollers can get hard. And another problem with these is this little shroud here that's moving back and forth. If it starts binding on that shroud can flip up and start hitting the tape. Or if it's binding, it'll cause wow and flutter because the pinch roller's not rolling smoothly. It's a lot of little things and that contribute to the whole, and that's true of any Nakamichi, not just the Dragon. So they are a bit finicky when they're not taken care of, they're not properly lubricated, or the old grease that's in them dries out, or when the rubber parts start to get hard and plasticky. But as long as you take care of that stuff and then you get it properly aligned, you're good. So Dragon, as far as the mechanics go, there's nothing to be scared of if you're familiar with Nakamichi stuff. That's the caveat, is that if you don't know Nakamichi stuff, it's very easy to screw this up, and I have seen that. But otherwise, this is nothing that I'm worried about going into. One thing that they don't talk about with the Dragon, because the head is, you've got one head and it plays in both directions, you can't get the alignment perfect for both directions. It's a compromise. So when you set this up, you disconnect the auto azimuth system and you manually align the heads, then you set the auto azimuth system afterwards. You're actually kind of trying to find a good compromise between both directions of play, and then the auto azimuth will fix, quote unquote, the misalignment on either side when it's playing in either side, and it'll just shift the head slightly so that it's aligned properly in either direction. But it's not the best system, honestly. Like for me, I would prefer what's in the ZX7, ZX9, the manual azimuth adjustments with one direction of play, because then you can align that head perfectly manually without the azimuth system, and then the auto azimuth system is just a fine tuning. But on this, you're compromised because of playing in either direction. So you could set it up perfectly in one way, but then it's not aligned the other way, and that's kind of something they don't talk about on the Dragon. That annoys me personally. It's not the end of the world. It still sounds great and it's still good enough. But if you're looking for that absolute perfect precision, this isn't it. You want one that only has a 2-track head that's only playing in one direction. That's kind of my opinion. Feel free to disagree. It's still super cool, and they're actually kind of fun to work on because they're so exotic, and people think that, ooh, this is voodoo magic. But honestly, like, this is traditional Nakamichi stuff with this added on is pretty much the only thing that's exotic about this transport. So I hope that dispels a little bit of the mythos around this, and you enjoyed having a deeper dive into the Dragon transport.